The moderator for today's Fireside chat is Mr. Ajith Prasad, Director, Grant Thornton. I kindly welcome you on stage, sir. Mr. Ajith Prasad. He is a visionary leader driving investments and fostering partnerships across diverse sectors. He is the Director of Grant Thornton. I heartily welcome you, sir. And he is the moderator for our discussion today. So next up, joining us is Mr. Gopikrishnan V. He is the CEO and founder of BuildNext, a dynamic entrepreneur with a wealth of experience in the real estate sector. His expertise in custom home building has established India's premium brand in the industry. A hearty welcome to you, sir. Joining the two gentlemen, we have Radhakrishnan G Nair, founder and CEO of VRticles, a seasoned leader in analytics, consulting, and a pioneer in virtual reality for industries. His passion for innovation and social change reflects in his work and advocacy. Again, a hearty welcome to you, sir. So we have three powerful, super interactive session about to begin. Ajith sir, yes, you can continue.
This is a buzzword right now, AR, VR, and in this age of Oculus, Vision Pro, I believe at least a few of you would have seen the Vision Pro related ads, etc., right? So we have two wonderful people who are working at the core of AR, VR. So while we see Vision Pro and everything is jazzy, what is the underlying things under that, that we will briefly see in this session as to how it will evolve and all that. So Gopi, let's start with you. Why don't you give a brief background of you, maybe in 1 or 2 minutes, on how you reached into this AR, VR field, and maybe a brief about your company. I think mic is not on.
Hello? Yeah, works, thanks. Quickly, so I am an architect. I did my MBA after that, and so when we started BuildNext, the idea was to essentially figure out how we can take technology solutions, different, emerging technologies, or let us say internet-based technologies, from across various sectors, and how do we use some of them. Hello? Yeah. So how do we use some of them to, solve problems in the, custom building space, right? Whether it is residential, commercial, whatever. Now, custom building is very special in many particular ways. One of them being that it's like you're prototyping, every single time. Right? It's not like, you have like a set plan you're kind of doing, which essentially, so if you have to do that with reasonable levels of, let's say, efficiency, then you basically need an in-depth planning happening again and again and again, which is very difficult to happen in a conventional manual scenario. So we could essentially create, like a technology platform which was able to do this. And then, which would eventually create efficiency, so we could extract that value and, essentially make profits, right? So now, so that's how we stumbled upon, basically, XR as solutions, because one of the issues with custom build, especially when there is a end customer involved, who doesn't really understand architecture or architectural drawing. So how do we basically make sure that there are no communication gaps? And why is this communication gaps an important piece of the puzzle? That is because if there are customer-led changes coming in during like a build process, then what happens is all your planning actually goes for a toss. I mean, irrespective of how much you have planned. I mean, it's like any development or manufacturing, right? I mean, if it has to stop in the middle, then, everything goes for a toss. There's no planning anymore. So we were able to kind of use AR, VR to almost reduce changes, by around, 40, 50%. Certain other toolkits added on to this, we were able to reduce it by almost, 80, 88, 90% is our reduction.
So basically you reduce the concept to design or concept to, proper building design or the end wish list sort of cycle using AR, VR.
Yes, so essentially it is a manner of basic. So see what exactly happens inside a virtual reality environment. The customer feels that they are walking through the final product exactly like that, and there is no lost in translation or lost in communication because of, I don't know, drawings or like a model or renders. So in a render you are only seeing one side of things. In a like a 360 like a render also, you aren't really seeing scale. So how do you basically communicate exactly like that? And VR can essentially communicate exactly like it's going to be built. So so that's what led to us. So yeah, I mean, because we are talking about other emerging technologies. So VR is there, and so there are specific problems that construction as or like design, architecture, AEC actually faces end to end through the cycle. And one big technology is like for AR VR actually trying to solve. Like for example, now we're talking about generative AI because ChatGPT, Sora and all that now is the big thing. One of the biggest generative AI toolkits actually started off, and Google started off something like that in. So one of the alphabets is S, Sidewalk Labs. So what Sidewalk Labs was trying to do was to essentially, if you could give Sidewalk Labs a large plot. Let us say, you are kind of giving it, a large plot, I don't know, like Mau Road. It will essentially pick up that plot and say, what can you build here? How much FSA can you build here? Should you use it for commercial? Should you use it for residential? He'll basically run down all the different, probabilities, what the pricing, all that stuff. It'll say, this is where you're actually going to make the, best scenario. And then it will break it down to like a massing level. Now, from that massing level, how do you generate plans? So now there are a lot of companies who are actually trying to generate plans, including us, right? So given a plot, how do you basically generate that into a plan, a massing, render and all that? Like, and how quickly can you do it? So the quicker you can do it, you are actually saving on, you're increasing the productivity of all your stuff. So that's pretty much what this was about.
Good to hear that intro, Gopi. So over to you, RK, if I may call it that way. Yeah.
Makes your life easy.
Yeah. Sure. So why don't you give that kind of an intro, like where you were and what made you come to this AR VR domain, and where do you see right now your firm?
Correct. So can you hear me? Yeah. So I come from a technology background and technology and consulting. So I worked with a lot of multinational players in my 25 years of experience. Then I got interested in this technology, and because for two reasons. One is there are a lot of complex trainings today, difficult to kind of execute in a real environment, right? So I found that virtual reality is going to be a solution for such issues. So when you look at mining, even look at construction, right? There are a lot of hazardous jobs which requires a lot of training. And in a country like India, where the growth is happening at an exponential pace, right? We need to train people in a higher numbers. And most of the people who are coming in this training today are theory-based training. So they don't have the real experience. So companies hire people and then they start training them for another 6 months, right? But immersiveness is a solution to that. When you look at that from that angle, you can basically train people with a real experience, whether it is construction, whether it is mining, whether it is aerospace. You don't have to spend that much, 9 months or 12 months. The other thing is, attrition is a big issue in any industry. Let's forget about IT, but in any industry. So how do you constantly train these people, right? So that was basically my interest. And one of the reasons why I was specifically interested is in the hazardous part of it, right? And the approach that we have taken is, when I looked at VR solutions, I always found that it is all custom-built solutions. So you build something, then you build something else, you build something else. So we took a platform approach, where we said there is a platform on which you can build anything. The other issue we had was finding the right skills in the AR/VR space. So how do I reduce that AR/VR skill dependency? So we came out with something called a scripting language, which is basically the platform language where people can learn fast and they can start developing the content. And not only that, I mean, if I go to a customer and sell this solution, they don't have to engage me for developing content after 3 months or 6 months, because I can train them to develop their content, right? And this is very good for companies which are taking a strategy. Because if you're an AR/VR strategy, because my belief is that AR/VR should be a strategy for the company. It should not be based on just a point-in solution. Because today what is happening in the market is point-in solution. So that was my interest, and that's how I got into this.
Yeah, so that's also, so we have two diverse fields, like Gopi works in the B2C or a end consumer centric field, whereas you work in more of a B2B field, right? Now, what I just want to know is and I believe both of you will have, used a lot of these different headsets for VR experiences, etc. Now, today, of course, general purpose VR headsets are very expensive. Do you see, let's say 5 or 10 years down the line, do you see a commoditization of all these headsets, or still there would be a lot of versions like Oculus and Vision Pro and all these custom things? Or do you really see, like, let's say, what is your strategy to link to that? Like, do you plan to focus on, let's say, 1 or 2 platforms, or do you plan to make it like a generic purpose, any platform sort of a thing?
Yeah, so
from a 5-year or 10-year perspective.
Yeah, to answer your question, I think I go back to the mobile phones.
Yeah.
Right? So when we started mobile phones, it was very expensive.
Yeah.
Right? Both making calls was expensive, buying a handset was also expensive. Right?
Yeah.
So the scale is important. Today, the fact is VR is expensive. There is no doubt about it. VR is expensive from a headset perspective, from an infrastructure perspective.
Vision Pro, I believe, retails at 3,300.
3,500.
Yeah.
So only the enterprises can afford that. I don't think the smaller organization can do that. So having said that, what is required is a scale. As you rightly said, the scale is what is required. And it's too early to guess how the whole thing is going, because when I was looking at the market, the Indian players started building these headsets. And what's happening is the price point of Indian headset builders are higher than the global prices.
Oh.
So which is a bit surprising to me, but maybe it is because of the scale, because they're not able to sell large numbers, and that could be the reason. So to answer your question today, I will stick on to the existing ones for the time being, closely observe what is happening in the market, right, and then make the necessary changes as required. So today my strategy is, I will, because of the cost, maybe I don't know, the pro cost and all those things, I don't know whether I'll buy that. But I will stick on to Meta, which is I think the standard ones which is used by many people.
Meta related.
Meta.
Yeah. Oculus.
Oculus.
Yeah.
So that is the one I will stick on to. But with the one caveat, what is happening, I work with a lot with the defense guys, and defense is, Meta Quest is no.
Privacy,
right? Yeah, because
secrecy.
privacy, Facebook, we cannot do anything.
Yeah.
So they are insisting on the India-made handsets, headsets.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a problem, because when you get into pricing, it is a challenge, right? Because I can offer a better price with the Meta Quest, where I'm not able to do that with the. So we are discussing with this ecosystem to see how we can again, the point is, how do you get it to scale? How the adoption is going to be, because today the adoption is also not that great.
Yeah.
So that will be my point of view on that.
Okay. Gopi, like, how do you see, because since you are in a B2C space, for you to scale, I believe the technology has to become mainstream. Like, either you set up a place wherein a lot of people can come in, or if you have to scale exponentially, the headsets have to be available with a lot of people. Like, how do you see the headset market evolving, or do you intend to have a few focused experience centers wherein people can come and consult, etc., or do you intend to go full B2C?
So, we're not exactly B2C.
Yeah.
We have this organization called BuildNext, which is our largest customer. So, but then this BuildNext Homes as a, as a B2B player has essentially set up experience centers. We are now running 10 virtual reality experience centers across the 4 South Indian states. But, to essentially answer this question of, I mean, like RK said, it all, comes up. It all, like at the end of the day, you can figure out, how much impact this particular technology has had by the scale at which it is running. Right now, the margins involved in all of these are high. I mean, if you basically try to map, let's say the different parts of a VR headset into, the kind of pricing that, let us say, mobile phones have, then VR headsets should probably be, 1/4 or 1/5 the current prices. So scale has not come into this sector or whatever. The thing is, for something like AR, VR to essentially become, let's say VR headsets to be there available in every single house or something like that, we are yet to find, reasonably, let's say, use cases which are reasonably commonplace, for which, people might actually invest in it. So one of the things that, Meta has been talking about for like a while now is that, you could actually create like a metaverse where, you can have like a full combination, that of, virtual world and, real world and all that. But again, right now, there is no clear thought process on, how this might actually happen. Will this happen in phases? There is no clear idea. No one exactly has. If we are actually to see a situation where every house has, one or multiple VR handsets, it can't come through gaming, right? It'll have to come through, I don't know, some kind of like an interactive process where everyone in the family is actually trying to do something like this. The simple answer is, I don't see anything like that happening in the next 5 years, right? Where everyone is actually going to, like every family is going to get, I don't know, like a television, right? I don't see that happening in the next 5 years, but the rate at which, new technology innovations are emerging, new companies are emerging, you really don't have visibility, more than, I don't know, like 4-5 years. But then I don't think it's time for anyone to start building something, assuming that, like in the near future, every house is going to have like a VR headset. So, yeah.
Good point. I just want to see how, if, are there anybody in this room who has, at least tried a few AR, VR headsets, maybe Facebook or Meta? Can you just raise the hands? You have tried. Which one you have tried? Apple or Meta or anything specific? Okay. So, from your perspective, from a common man's who is not an entrepreneur like these two, do you see, let's say, a mainstream adoption of that, or do you see that it is going to remain a niche field? Okay. Good.
So if I can just kind of, add on to that, right? There could be different cases where we will see more commonplace use. Like for example, so I live in Cochin, and now in Cochin, almost all of the different, game zones have like a VR game thing available there, right? Like a VR ride, right? Which was not there, which was definitely not there pre-COVID. I don't know when this thing came up, but like that's like what, like 3 years before, right? So in the last 2 years, that has happened. So now VR gaming is like commonplace, and more people will actually see it and all that. I think a lot of usage of, something like this, it would have to either come via media, or it will have to come via healthcare, or it will have to come via, like when I say healthcare, it includes, wellness and fitness and all these things. So it will have to come through one of those things. It is most probably not going to come through, like any other, like a, I don't know, or maybe communications technology. But again, communications technology looks too far long shot right now. So.
Yeah, from RK, the next, dimension that I want to throw to you is you spoke about training materials and working with the defense, etc. So, how easy or difficult is getting the talent base to do this? The material AR/VR material development and all that. If it is difficult, can you train a general purpose computer engineer easily to get into that domain? So I just want you to spend some time on the talent part of it.
See, I think the talent is there, but I think in any industry, the right talent is a problem, right? Because talents are available in plenty because all engineering colleges are kind of generating a number of graduates. And the statistics have shown that how many of them are really employable. And when it comes to these technologies where the creativity plays an important role than your technical skills, I think to me it is a combination skill that is required to develop anything in these creative technologies or the immersive technologies. So for that, do we have the skills today? The answer is no. And the skills are also always in demand. And you train somebody in these technologies, I think within a month, within 3 months, they get double the salary and they leave. So yeah, skilling is a challenge. I think the educational institutions and others need to clearly look at it. There are very few universities across India who is looking at this as a skill because they are yet to get into that bandwagon of generating these skills. So skills continues to be an issue, and again, back to my earlier point, I was explaining to you, one of the way to overcome that, what we have done is to create a platform and generate the content using the platform so that you don't have to really depend on the technology skills of Unity or Unreal to develop content, right? So that way I think we are able to kind of mitigate that to a certain extent. But that is our strategy. But there are hundreds of other companies there who are still depend on these base technologies, and they do need a lot of people, right? And the main question to be asked is, not the technology. How do you create skills that has creativity in their mind? I think that is difficult question.
It's like an intersection between technology and liberal arts and all that thing that is crucial for your domain to flourish.
Yeah, that is my take on it, because it may not be a technical expert who is of more value to me, but it is, as I said, it's a combination and intersection of the skill, where you need to have the creativity, we need to have the technology skills, and as he said, I think the use cases are what? The use cases are, to me, are imagination, right? Because you have to imagine to create things. So far, the technology is like somebody said, you do this, they will go and do it, right? But this is a technology where nobody is going to tell you this is what you need to do it, right? You have to create the problem yourself and solve the problem yourself. And that's where I think what Gopi was talking about, the whole scalability of use cases will come into picture. And that is a difficult thing to do. And all our universities doing that, my answer is no today. Maybe they have to focus on that.
Gopi?
Yeah, no, I was actually thinking the other day. So we have Sora right now. So Sora, hopefully, a lot of you have seen videos of have generated by Sora. So it's this new tool by OpenAI which is able to, so you can give it a text prompt and it will generate, like videos, right? So you could essentially, so for example, there is a video of paper planes flying. And it was crazy. It was so, realistic, and it was I don't know, akin to any main scale, like studio, DreamWorks or Pixar or whatever, actually generating a like an image like that. If it can generate a 3D or currently it's not generated in 3D, it's actually generated in video edits, right, in pixels. But if it can actually generate similar things in 3D and then populate and get people to walk through it, then if that so that's like one more step in forward, right? Then you could actually, like a regular person could actually say, what, can you show me can you take me to a place from where I am able to see like the sea from a cliff which is like a kilometer high, just take me to a place like that, and I could be standing there. Right? As simple as that. Because the rest of it is kind of, like creativity is kind of managed by like a generative AI tool. But that could really solve for a lot of these things. So then what can happen is, like for example, right now, like an average, like a college student who's interested in, movie making is right now finding it very hard to actually create a little bit of a short film, right? Or for example, people have to, really think hard. If they are, I don't know, let's say, writing, right? So people may be able to kind of, do characters well, but they are not maybe able to world build that better, that well or something. So that bridge is going to be very easy using, something like this.
Correct.
So that could really be, I don't know, that could really change the kind of things that we see, the kind of, use cases that we see. But again, like it's all, like maybe wishful thinking, but I mean, that's what we do.
So
No, I think the question is, are there concentrated effort on that mode? Because education has not changed much, right? As you rightly said, how do you create that intersection of creativity, technology, movie making, right? They said all these open universities and liberal arts will resolve that issue, but I mean, I'm yet to see that happening. So I think, yeah, you're right, because AI can change many things in life we don't know. Because I have seen AI created images. It looks too perfect. To me, sometimes that is also not accurate. So yeah, AI could be one option to look at it. But today, as he said, I mean, it's all possibilities of the future. And I think the immediate need is to create skills in the right intersection, so that we can have these people. Again, one more point I'll make. Back to your observation, we also do a lot of work with the historical aspects, where we look at how a particular site was, or how a particular museum was, right? So when we look at that, what we have learned is not just the technology people that we need for this, right? We need a set of people who are historians, who understands it, because you can do a time travel and go back about 50 years with this technology. Because there are a lot of unexplored areas in this technology, because people are only looking at this technology as a point in solution to solve something. But when you sit back and think about it, there are so many things we can do, because today history is taught in schools just like a paper and somebody saying that war happened and this happened, right? Nobody is worried about 1856, January 14, what happened. How it happened. Back to my early point around immersiveness of learning, which is long-standing, right? So all these things are, so VR, AR should not be just looked at as a technology, but how do we kind of get into these things, and it is going to be a combination of many things. And you need different expertise to create that. You need historians, you need sound engineer, as he said, you need musician, you need a cinematographer. So it's a kind of a very varied skill set, and technology plays an important role, but that's not the end of everything. So that's my view.
So, one specific, I remember one specific discussion that, I was actually having. This was like a couple of years before. But what you said, we were exactly this. So we were like, AR is so criminally underutilized. Just think about, going to, Cultural. Yeah. And, being able to actually see, all the Dutch army coming, and, like Martand Varma's army actually defeating and all that, and you being taken through like a 15-minute kind of, documentary in that real place in AR. And if you have something like that, then, people are just going to kind of throng from across the world to see this in that place. It improves on the quality of the location, not decrease, right? It basically gives, and then all of this history that we have, I don't know, like 5,000 years of history that we have, actually starts making sense. Like if you today go to, any of the Harappa Mohenjo-daro sites, all you will see are, bricks and, roads and all that. What if someone is actually showing, this is how it was, and, this is where it was, all, renders, marking, all that stuff, right? There are opportunities in here, but the opportunities are not standalone. The opportunities are not, in like, AR technology alone. You have to use this as part of the entire, value proposition that you're providing. Like for us, it is basically, so we are not really charging for AR, VR to anyone, because we won't be able to do that. No one will pay for it. But when you are actually giving it as part of the entire proposition, there is a lot of value. If AR, VR is part of a tourism proposition, it will give value. If AR, VR is part of, surgeon, like whatever this thing as a profession, it will add value, right? A lawyer actually being able to train themselves in a courtroom, yes, it adds value, right? In fact, we specifically did one, you were talking about, dangerous, hazardous things earlier. we, for one of our customers, we had actually, so that person was working at Indian Oil. So we had actually built a fire training module for them. Just out of the, like for the heck of it, we had built something. And they actually deployed it. So people were doing fire training in a VR environment. And it was very functional. So if they, like if they did the wrong thing, then there'll be a fire happening
Absolutely.
and they'll die in the VR thing and they'll reset. It's as simple as that. So I think that's the overall utility is what you have to think of before thinking about, okay, you know what, I like AR, VR. Unless and until you want to be a developer.
Absolutely. And I think he is absolutely right, because you look at the creative experience and the storytelling, right? That is more important than what technology you're trying to fit in, because there are competing technologies as well. So that is an important thing. So if you look at from that angle, I think that is where I think, as you said, it is the end-to-end is something that is very, very important. That's where you need all these diverse skills to kind of get there, right? So don't look at in isolation of the technology. What business problem you are trying to solve, that is what is more important. And back to my skills again, how many people we are creating today who can solve the business problem? Very few. The people we are creating from the universities are people who are basically doing something that you are asking them to do. So that is where I think we need to bridge the gap and move in that direction.
Incidentally, there is this French startup called Histovery, Histovery. So what they do is recreate the historical experiences in Louvre Museum and all this kind of things using AR, VR technologies, etc. So it's at an early stage. So we can hope that maybe in another 5 to 10 years, something like that will come into India and reinvigorate all this historical places and all that. So the final segment before I maybe open up to audience that I just want to ask you is, you spoke about education and all that. Are there anything else that the policy or government related stakeholders, like for you, you have stakeholders such as CREDAI and all RERA and all this kind of entities, etc. For you, maybe it's maybe a defense ecosystem.
No, same thing applies to me also. So
okay, okay. So is there any pointer or at a I mean, they can't, it's not, don't look at it them from a pure business perspective, but are there any things that from a policy or a some kind of a rule standpoint that you think these entities should do? If you could just summarize maybe 1 or 2 points.
Yeah. So I think first I will talk about the NEP, the new education policy. So the good news is that new education policy is more focused on immersiveness rather than just trying to make it like a run-the-mill type of thing, which is a welcome change. How it's going to be implemented, we don't know, because it is still in the experimentation phase. But I think the great thing that I'm seeing now is many of these institutes, when you look at the ITIs, when you look at the polytechnic colleges and some of the engineering colleges, they have started adopting this technology for training, right? So the good news is that by adopting this technology, you are also ensuring that you are contributing to the ESG goals. Because, for example, if you go to an ITI and there is a lot of welding happening there, right? There is a lot of material wasted and you are also spoiling the environment because the fumes are coming out. All those things, when you put it into a VR solution, basically you are training your people better, but you are not causing the ESG damages to the society.
Sustainability, net zero.
Sustainability, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that AR, VR as a buzzword, it is different, but when you try to kind of apply into many of those issues, then you see new things coming up, right? There is a direction from Government of India to convert 55% of the ITI training into virtual reality, VR. 55% of their training should be translated to VR. And Odisha is testing this as the first step, right? That is on the skilling part, and where I think what you say, what the governing bodies need to do. I think something is happening, something more to be done. Coming back to CREDAI and also the RERA that I think you are talking about, see that when there are large players, they are able to invest in these kind of solutions, right? There are a lot of smaller players in the real estate industry, and there are more small players than the large players, right? So CREDAI, etc. can help. As I think he was talking about the experience centers, and he has set up something for his own use. But CREDAI can basically look at it and say, can we help these small players by setting something this up so that their efficiency will go up, right? Their training will be more effective. So that is one area where I expect if there are CREDAI members here, probably they can look at that. RERA to me is a little vague, but again I will give you a use case where, for example, RERA is supposed to regulate and control the progress of the construction. And I think always there is a kind of a difference of opinion between the builders and the RERA. RERA thinks one way and builders think differently. But having said that, if you really create a digital twin, right, of large scale, for example, you can put a threshold and say, above this threshold I would like to see. They can also see the progress of what is happening with the building, right? They can decide to choose what they want to see. I am not saying that they have to create the entire digital replica, but they can do that. So there is another use case emerging there where they can have the trust factor between what you are telling me and what I am doing, right? Today there is a trust deficiency between them because they can't go and visit all the, 50 buildings. So this is another way of doing it. Again, if you can do it at a scale, I think it's going to help everybody. So that's my point.
Gopi, how do you see that regulatory or aspect, not just regulation per se, but from a policy, overall development of the ecosystem, is there anything that any of this agency, government bodies or anybody needs to do? Let's close with that.
My very humble opinion, maybe I don't know enough about this, but see, if I'm asked for a particular use case of AR, VR or any other technology solution for, let us say, a CREDAI or a RERA's purpose, I think I'll be able to give. But I'm not really sure whether any solutions that we will basically build for CREDAI or RERA or someone like that is actually revenue generating for them. It is actually a cost center for them. Like for example, digital twins for buildings are actually mandatory in Singapore. I think in Dubai, certain parts of UAE, I think including main Dubai, they've actually mandated digital twins and BIM models. But then these are cost centers. In India right now, I believe that the government should more focus on increasing quality of delivery, increasing revenue centers, and AR VR can actually be one of the tools which creates such opportunities, like what Histovery is probably working on, and maybe many other opportunities like that. I think, like for example, in this whole tourism as a there's a whole lot of possibilities within that. Storytelling, whole lot of possibilities within that. I mean, if we have so many people coming to watch like a historical movie, I don't know, like a Ponniyin Selvan, what about creating something like that which is location specific, with which we can actually create like something like that. But then how do we so I think we will first need like a pilot for that, something to do, and then create something like that. But this is something which is very difficult to arise from a purely private point, because unless the government actually allows for it. So if the government can actually, whoever is the government body can actually identify potential use cases by which we can create such kind of content which can generate more revenue for the country and for GDP, whatever. I think that's a direction that it should really go in, rather than like cost centers. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, Gopi.
That's a difference between his point of view and my point of view, because I'm a service provider. So I am looking at generating revenue for me, and I think he's looking at, because he's going to spend money, so he's saying that it is a cost center. But as far as service center is concerned, it's a cost or it's an investment. For me, it is business. So I think, it's the same view, but I think we have a slightly different perspective in that.
So that was quite insightful, looking at from two different kind of a platform player as well as an end business provider. So I think quite lot of perspectives, quite lot of forward thinking views. It was wonderful talking to both of you.